It started with a radio call that shouldn't exist. The call came in at 2:13 a.m. in the morning. Not through dispatch. Not through the emergency band. It came through an old Ranger frequency that had been dead for months. I was alone in the North Watchtower, halfway through a routine patrol shift, logging weather conditions and checking motion sensors that almost never picked up anything bigger than a deer. Outside, the forest looked like it always did at night. Then the radio cracked to life so hard it made me jump. At first it was only static. Thick, wet-sounding static, like the signal was dragging itself through mud. Then a voice pushed through it. Breathing hard. He said my name. Then he said it again, louder this time, as if he was trying to force the words through a broken throat. He kept repeating the same phrase. It is watching us. It is watching us. It is watching us. I knew that voice. It belonged to Ranger Eli Mercer. Eli had gone missing 8 months earlier during a storm search near the restricted boundary line. We never found a body, never found a pack, nothing. Just a broken GPS unit and a report that was sealed before any of us could read the full details. I grabbed the radio and answered, asking where he was, asking if this was some kind of joke, some kind of recorded playback. He did not respond, but behind his voice, I heard something else. Slow breathing, too deep, too steady, too close to the microphone to belong to a man running for his life. Then the signal cut, and the silence that followed felt like something listening. My name is Owen Hart, and I have been a forest ranger for almost 11 years. I have worked wildfires, rescue ops, illegal hunting cases, and enough backcountry recoveries to know when fear is rational and when it is just fatigue playing tricks on you. This was different. The feeling that settled into my chest after that radio call was not nerves. It was recognition. I was stationed in the western sector of Black Hollow National Preserve, a part of the park the public never saw. On official maps, it was marked as restricted due to unstable terrain, toxic plant concentration, and environmental risk. That was the phrase they used. Environmental risk. Locals had different explanations. They talked about missing hikers, campers hearing relatives call their names from empty tree lines, hunters following footprints that ended in circles around their own trucks. Most of us laughed it off. Every isolated place collects stories. That is what people do when they cannot explain why a place feels wrong. But Black Hollow always felt wrong. Even in daylight, the trees stood too close together, like they had grown with purpose. The wind never moved through that section the way it should have. Sounds carried strangely. Sometimes you would hear a branch snap far away, but it would seem to come from right behind your shoulder. And there were reports. Real one, sealed one. 3 hikers gone over 6 years. One wildlife survey team pulled out after 48 hours and refused to return. Then Eli. After his disappearance, the upper boundary was pushed back another 6 miles, and I was reassigned to tower duty. Log everything. Patrol the perimeter. Do not enter the restricted zone without authorization. That was the order. After the radio transmission, I sat at the desk for almost 10 minutes, replaying the sound in my head. I checked the timestamp. Logged the frequency. Logged the phrase, logged the breathing. Then I did the one thing I should have done sooner. I marked the incident for investigation. At the time, I still thought I was filing a report. I did not realize I was opening a door. I started with the radio logs. The tower kept backup audio for all incoming transmissions, but when I pulled the file, the recording did not sound the same. Eli's voice was there, but thinner, distant, almost buried under static. The breathing was gone. I played it again. Still gone. That was when I noticed movement outside the window. The tower overlooked a clearing cut into the trees decades ago for fire surveillance. Beyond that clearing, the forest line stood in a perfect wall of dark trunks. Something was there, just inside the trees. Tall. Too tall to be a bear. Too still to be human. I stood up slowly, trying not to blink, because every instinct in me said if I looked away, even for a second, it would move. It did not. It just stood there, half hidden behind a pine, as if it knew exactly how much of itself to show. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped outside. The cold hit me first. Then the silence. No insects, no wind, no movement at all. I swung the beam across the tree line. Nothing. Whatever I had seen was gone. I walked to the edge of the clearing and found tracks pressed into the damp soil. At first glance, they looked human. 2 feet, heel, a stride pattern, but the proportions were wrong. The prints were too narrow, too long, and the toes seemed stretched, almost jointed in a way I could not make sense of. I crouched and measured one against my boot. It was longer than mine by 3 inches. No claws, no pads, no hoof split. No animal in that forest made tracks like that. And the worst part was not where the prints led. It was where they stopped, right below the tower window. I should have called for full containment right then. Instead, I convinced myself there had to be a real explanation. Sleep deprivation. Anything that fit inside the world I understood. But that excuse did not last through the night. Around 3:40 a.m., I heard footsteps circling the tower. Slow at first, then faster, then slow again. I killed the interior lights and listened. Crunch, crunch. Always just outside the floodlight range. I radioed dispatch and got nothing but static. Then from somewhere beyond the tower I heard a voice call my name. My own voice, not similar, not close. Same tone, same rough edge in the throat. Same habit I had of dragging the vowel in my own name when I was tired. It came from the trees. Then again a little farther to the left. Owen, come here. Every muscle in my body locked. I knew I had not spoken. My mouth had gone dry. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped the flashlight. The radio crackled beside me. At first I thought dispatch had finally answered, but what came through was a conversation I had not had yet. My voice said I found tracks outside the tower. Then another voice, dispatch maybe, answered, stay inside until first light. I had not made that call. Those words had not been spoken. Not yet. 20 minutes later I said them exactly. Same order. Same breath between sentences. Same reply. By dawn I had not slept at all. Motion sensors had gone off on 3 sides of the clearing, always one after the other, like something was circling and learning the range. I reviewed the sequence twice and realized the intervals were not random. It was pacing us, matching our patterns, repeating our sounds, replaying our words before we said them. That was when the fear changed. Up until then I thought something was in the woods. Now I understood something in the woods was paying attention. Backup arrived just after sunrise. 2 rangers from the South Station and 1 field specialist from Central Command. Ranger Mila Torres led the team. Smart, steady, not the kind of person who scares easily. With her came Ben Kessler, a tracker, and Aaron Pike, who handled communications and mapping. I gave them everything. The transmission, the footprints, the impossible radio playback. None of them laughed. Mila listened to the file twice, then looked toward the tree line and said, we find the source. That should have been enough warning for me, how quickly Command approved entry into a zone they had kept sealed for months. No arguments, no delays, just coordinates pushed to Aaron's tablet and one simple instruction. Recover any active equipment. We crossed the boundary before noon. The deeper we went, the stranger the forest became. Trees bent inward over the trail, shutting out the sun. Moss-coated rocks and thick dark sheets that looked almost oily. The air smelled wrong, not rotten exactly, but stale, like a room that had been sealed too long. About 2 miles in, Ben found the first piece of ranger gear. A torn utility pouch hanging from a branch at head height. Eli's name was still stitched into the flap. Farther ahead, we found an old campsite. Collapsed tent, rusted cook tin, battery lantern smashed against a tree. No signs of struggle. No one, no blood, just abandonment. Then we saw the carvings. They were cut into the bark of 3 pines standing in a rough circle. The same mark over and over. A vertical line split by 3 smaller slashes, almost like a spine with ribs. Fresh on some trees. Ancient on others. Aaron said it looked ritualistic. Ben said it looked like territory marking. I said nothing because I'd already noticed something worse. The carvings were not random. They were all facing inward, as if whatever made them had not been marking the forest. It had been marking us. And from that point on, none of us could shake the feeling that we were moving through a place that had known we were coming long before we stepped inside it. We found the camera near a dry creek bed, half buried under leaves and mud. It was an older body cam model, standard Ranger issue, with the lens cracked but the storage unit intact. Aaron managed to power it using a field cable and a portable battery. We gathered around the screen while the forest stood completely silent around us. The footage began at night. Eli was alone in frame, sitting beside a dead fire, whispering into the camera so hard his teeth were chattering. He kept looking over his shoulder at something we could not see. He said he had been hearing someone walk behind him for hours. Not chasing, not attacking, just matching his pace. Then he turned the camera and swept it across the trees. Nothing. When he faced the lens again, he started talking to someone off camera. At first I thought one of us had to be there with him. He kept nodding, pausing, listening like another person was speaking just outside the frame. But no voice ever came through. It was only Eli answering silence. Then the footage changed, not the image. He became calmer. Too calm. His breathing steadied. His posture straightened. He lifted his hand slowly, staring at something ahead of him. That was when Mila leaned closer and whispered, "Stop." There was movement behind Eli. Tall and pale, almost flat against the dark trees. At first it looked like a trick of the grain, but then it raised an arm. Not after Eli moved. 1 second before Eli lifted his hand, the shape had already copied the motion. Before he turned his head, it had turned. Before he stood, it was already rising. My stomach dropped so hard I thought I would be sick. It was not mimicking him after the fact. It was leading him, predicting him, guiding him, maybe even deciding what he would do before he did it. The clip ended with Eli smiling at the camera in a way that did not look like Eli at all. Then he said one sentence. "It knows me better than I do." The screen went black. No one spoke for a long time after that, because we were all thinking the same thing. If it could learn you that completely, then maybe by the time you noticed it, you were already not alone in your own body. After the footage, the team changed. Not all at once. Not in some dramatic, obvious way. Small things first. Aaron answered questions before we asked them, like he had heard the conversation a few seconds early. Ben kept stopping to look into the trees with his head tilted, as if he were listening to instructions I could not hear. Mila stayed focused, but I noticed she had started repeating certain phrases under her breath. Stay together, eyes up. Stay together, eyes up. The deeper we moved, the more those words sounded less like orders and more like programming. Then Ben disappeared. We were crossing another carved grove when he fell behind for less than a minute. Mila called his name once. No answer. We fanned out, checked the brush, checked the slope, checked the creek line. Nothing. No crash through the undergrowth. No shout. No tracks leaving the trail. It was like the forest had opened and taken him whole. We searched for nearly 2 hours before he came back on his own. He stepped out between the trees to our right, calm as ever, not sweating, not breathing hard, not asking why we looked terrified. Mila grabbed him and demanded where he had been. He stared at her for one long second and said, "Right here." Same voice, same face. But something was wrong. His timing was off. He blinked too little. He smiled half a second after a sentence ended, as if the expression had to catch up. And when Aaron asked what direction he had gone, Ben answered before the question was fully spoken. Then he repeated it, word for word. Same inflection, same pause. Aaron backed away so fast he nearly fell. That was when panic finally split the group open. Mila wanted to retreat. Aaron wanted to radio command. Ben just stood there watching us with a blank patience that made my skin crawl. I tried the radio. Static. Then through the hiss, 4 voices came back. All speaking at once. All layered over each other. All saying the same thing. Do not run. We ran anyway. And the forest did not let us leave. By the time we found the bunker, night had already swallowed the trail. It was hidden beneath a slope of stone and roots, sealed behind a rusted steel door half camouflaged by moss. Aaron forced the latch with a pry bar, and inside we found what should have changed everything years ago. Rows of old filing cabinets. Dead monitors. Containment logs. Not wildlife report. Not environmental hazard reports. Containment document. The restricted zone had never been closed to protect people from the forest. It had been closed to protect the world from whatever lived inside it. I found incident reports going back 30 years. Field teams documenting mimic behavior, voice replication, predictive movement synchronization, replacement events. Then the page that made my hands go numb. Cycle failure. Subject passed perimeter undetected. Civilian contact probable. It had escaped before. more than once. The thing in Black Hollow was not hunting at random. It was studying, refining, learning how to become human well enough to leave without being seen. And every disappearance, every sealed report, every ranger reassignment had been part of the same lie. Containment had failed a long time ago. Then Mila opened the final drawer and found a photo log. People standing outside the forest fence over the years. Recovered survivors, returned staff. In 3 of the photos, the same face appeared in different decades. Not aged, not changed, just copied. That was when I understood the truth that made everything else worse. The forest was never its prison. The forest was its classroom. And we were the lesson. I am recording this because I do not know if I made it out. I know how that sounds, but if someone finds this, you need to understand exactly what happened after the bunker. Aaron vanished first. 1 second he was beside me, the next he was gone into the dark beyond the doorway. Mila followed the sound of his voice, and I never saw her again. Ben stayed close, too close, until I turned and saw him standing perfectly still in the moonlight, smiling that delayed smile. Then I saw another Ben behind him. Same face, same body, same blanks. I do not remember much after that. Trees. Static screaming through my radio. My own voice calling to me from places I had not reached yet. At some point I made it back to the tower, or something wearing me did. That is why I am leaving this final transmission. If you work these woods and you hear a familiar voice calling from the tree line, do not answer. If the radio plays your words before you speak them, do not answer. If someone returns to camp and something about them feels delayed, rehearsed, too exact, do not let them near you. And if you hear my voice, Owen Hart, Ranger Station West, asking for help from inside Black Hollow, do not come looking for me. Because by the time this reaches you, one of us is already outside. There is someone at the door. I can hear myself asking to be let in. If this story unsettled you, tell me in the comments what you would do if something in the woods knew you better than you knew yourself. If you want more cinematic horror stories like this, like the video, subscribe and stay with me for the next one. Owen, open the door. That is not me.